Hi there, I'm Adam McDermott. Spec Ops The Line has stuck with me ever since I first finished it about 2.5 years ago, and I've only grown to appreciate it more over time. Oh, there will be spoilers throughout the video, as the best part of the game is the story. With that said, this is my personal experience with Spec Ops The Line. Back in 2013, I was dabbling in making gaming videos, but I wanted to create something a little more professional and challenging than the average tips or let's play videos I was making at the time. What better way to push myself than by doing a video review? I had watched hundreds of them by Game Trailers, GameSpot and IGN. I sort of understood the process. So with abysmal writing skills, passable editing, and an awkward voiceover, I decided to give it a shot. Now I needed a game. Being a PlayStation Plus member, there were several titles I had not played available: The Cave, Joe Danger 2, and Spec Ops The Line. My knowledge of all three was limited. The Cave seemed like a 2.5D platformer, Joe Danger was an arcadey kind of game, and Spec Ops, as far as I knew, was a big budget shooter based in the desert. I went with Spec Ops because I assumed there would be more to talk about, as well as it being part of a genre I was familiar with. I felt a little excited after choosing it. I was going to do a video review, like a pro. Pen and paper in hand, I started playing what would turn out to be one of my favourite games. Although early on, it certainly didn't show any signs of being anything other than another generic attempt to cash in on the modern military shooter cash boom caused by Call of Duty and Battlefield. And wouldn't you know it, I still have my notes from that first playthrough. Looking at them years later reveals how painfully obvious my observations were. Tactical combat, cover shooting, you will kill a lot of people, gunfights last too long. Really insightful stuff. While the majority of gameplay seemed run-of-the-mill, there was a glimmer of Spec Ops being a cut above its contemporaries from the start thanks to the story. I have written down story twists with Americans siding with locals, excellent protagonist who is a little bit psycho. Then the turning point. Chapter 8. Using white phosphorus. Walking through the horrific aftermath and seeing soldiers scream in agony was powerful. That is echoed in what I wrote down. Shining moment, ramification of action, true brilliance. The story kicks into high gear after this as things go from bad to worse, with the relationship between the men fraying, the situation in Dubai becoming a nightmare, and the protagonist's mental state deteriorating. I found myself racing through the rest of the game, desperate to see where this engaging story was going, all while loading screens messed with my head, with quotes like, "The US military does not condone the killing of unarmed combatants, but this isn't real, so why should you care?" And after doing terrible things, it reassures me, saying, "You are still a good person." When I got to the dramatic conclusion and it's revealed Walker has been an unreliable narrator the whole time, chasing this idea of being a hero, all while causing massive chaos and sentencing Dubai to death, I was dumbfounded. This modern military shooter was criticizing its own genre. War is not fun, it is tragic. People die and those who survive are mentally traumatized. I was, and still am, in awe of Spec Ops' dramatic and gut-wrenching story. Barely any of this made it into my review, as it would be considered spoilers, so the most interesting part of Spec Ops was left unexplored in the video. Nevertheless, I was happy enough with my first ever video review. By no means was it good, but a solid first effort, and it encouraged me to continue making scripted videos, which one day evolved into a 22-minute, 4,000-word in-depth look at player choice in the Bioshock series. As for Spec Ops, I was so moved by it, I couldn't bring myself to play any other games for quite a while, as its enthralling story completely occupied my mind. I changed my desktop wallpaper to this, as a reminder of what games are capable of. how they can explore a dark subject matter unlike any other medium, throwing a person into the thick of it and allowing them to have a hand in the tortured tale. I didn't even replay it until weeks later. I just wanted to sit with it, allow thoughts about the story to naturally surface. When I finally felt ready, I nervously started a new game, knowing how it all ends. I didn't have an absolute understanding about the events of Dubai, as the game lends itself to interpretation, but that second playthrough was insightful. I marched through the fallen city slowly, trying to take in every detail, and the first thing which jumped out to me was this. A picture of Conrad's face plastered on the side of a truck, like it is watching me. I kept an eye out for other instances of his face appearing, and sure enough, at numerous points I saw it. Either Conrad is a really vain person who ordered his image to be blown up and put on various places around Dubai, or it's a hallucination. My guess is hallucination because Walker doesn't point out the heroic John Conrad to the other two soldiers. Or maybe he doesn't notice it, just like I didn't. Perhaps it's a subtle clue that things aren't right from as early as the first chapter. Something else that struck me was all the rappelling, ziplining, dropping and falling down into Dubai the squad does. There are only a few moments where they go up, and that is to the helicopter, which crashes, the radio tower to kill the radio man in cold blood before going back down where they came from, and meeting Conrad at the end. For the rest of the time, Walker and his men go deeper and deeper, a literal descent into madness.
Shit!
Watching Walker constantly shift the blame for his actions onto Conrad is startling, even when it is obviously his fault. Like after killing the 47 civilians with white phosphorus.
I'm gonna make these bastards pay for what they've done. Now are you with me or not?
Just what is he talking about? Walker rained down death and destruction from above on soldiers who were trying to help evacuate civilians and killed everyone in the most horrific way possible. Yet somehow this isn't his fault. Walker's delusion is alarming. Playing through for a second time gave me a greater appreciation for how layered the narrative of Spec Ops is. I was able to pick up on things I missed, perhaps by design, the first time around. Once finished, I was again in awe of the magnificent achievement in storytelling, this subversive piece of work critiquing its own genre. Only when The Last of Us came out months later did I feel ready to play another game, because I'd been exposed to possibly my favourite story ever told and nothing else interested me. Thankfully, The Last of Us is a damn fine game and it got me back into playing. However, this has been one of my desktop wallpapers ever since 2013. I stayed away from theories for a long time, as I feel it's a game where you can find your own meaning. I knew I'd went on a monstrous ride and it changed the way I looked at other games. I wasn't ready to hear about theories regarding the events of Dubai. Not yet anyway. I didn't touch the game for a couple of years until I had the mad idea to document the ups and downs of getting a platinum trophy in it for an episode of Platinum Journey. I would be sitting down and spending a bunch of hours doing 2 more playthroughs, once on hard while collecting all the intel and killing enemies in specific ways, and once on very hard difficulty known as Fubar, which is heralded as one of the most challenging difficulties in any shooter. Playing it on hard was alright. It was great to experience the story again and the combat wasn't too frustrating, but Fubar proved to be a serious test of patience. It is not a secret that the weakest part is the gameplay. Completing the highest difficulty is an arduous, infuriating chore. Squad members dying out in the open in the middle of a hellacious gunfight, unresponsive controls, dying in 2 to 3 hits. Just don't play Spec Ops on Fubar. I'd even recommend playing on easy as the story is where it excels. Oh, I still have the footage of the Fubar playthrough, 7 hours of it. Here are some of the moments where I was pushed to my limit. You fuck. This is not going to be an easy playthrough. I get back here, you fucking idiot! You can't keep... Oh, you fucking idiots.
Why are you so fucking stupid? Motherfucking, I hate my fucking teammates. Come on. Yes! Oh, what a torturous playthrough.
So I beat Fubar and emerged with a Platinum trophy, excited to put together a profanity-laden episode of Platinum Journey. However, while going back through the footage, I discovered the gameplay for my entire Fubar playthrough and Platinum trophy pop is silent. No audio whatsoever. Then a horrid flashback. I remembered that at a particular point during the recording, I muted the software for capturing gameplay because I was trying to listen to something else on the computer. The problem is, I never unmuted it. The meat of the Platinum journey, the true hardship and eventual triumph, is useless. All that heartache for nothing. I had tortured myself and pushed my adoration for Spec Ops to the breaking point in the hopes of creating something entertaining, but instead I was left with a deep resentment for video making. I didn't produce anything else for over a month and a half. I was too annoyed and angry and needed a break. During that time off, this beloved game of mine was never too far away. I still had that wallpaper reminding me of how special Spec Ops is, and I was ready to hear some other theories about the events of Dubai. The more I read, the more engrossed I became. I had missed a bunch of stuff, like how the game's enemies become fearful of Walker and his men as the game progresses. This terrifying three-man army is killing everything in sight. How the paintings are missing eyes where something repulsive happens. How whenever a cutscene fades to white, it's a hallucination. How in the beginning, when Lugo starts talking to the locals in Farsi, Walker praises him for his diplomacy, but Farsi isn't the native language of Dubai. Arabic is. Farsi is spoken in Iran and, more noteworthy, Afghanistan, where Walker and Conrad serve together. I could go on, and perhaps one day I will make a separate video pointing out the many missable interesting tidbits, but more importantly and uplifting from all my research, I learned that I was not the only person deeply moved by Spec Ops. Forum after forum, video after video praising it for all it had achieved. Hell, a fella by the name of Sean Murray did his master's thesis on an analysis of Spec Ops The Line as an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. On top of that, Killing is Harmless, a critical reading of Spec Ops The Line, is a 160-page book written by Brendan Keogh. Knowing so many people were positively affected by Spec Ops is heartwarming. I'm also aware that not everyone liked it. Some thought the way the game forces the player to commit horrible acts of violence in order to progress, a common shooter trope, then turns around and lectures the player by saying stuff like "this is all your fault," misses the mark. That there is a disconnect present by telling the player they are a terrible person for doing something the game forced upon them, with the only real way to break the cycle being to stop playing a game they bought with their hard-earned cash. It is a valid argument and one I don't actually oppose, but for me, even if it didn't deliver its message perfectly, the way Spec Ops opened my mind up to thinking about stories and action games, as well as all games really, in a different way is something I am grateful for. It also introduced me to Joseph Conrad and his turn-of-the-century written masterpiece, The Heart of Darkness, which I'm currently reading alongside a collection of his other works. After those, I plan on watching Apocalypse Now. How exciting! Spec Ops The Line remains one of my favourite games thanks to its layered narrative that has stuck with me to this day. I didn't touch the game. I didn't touch. I didn't touch. I didn't touch. I didn't touch. I didn't. I didn't. I just. I didn't touch. I didn't touch. I didn't touch. I didn't. Oh, okay. I didn't touch the game for another. Oh, I got it. I messed up the next part. Okay.